What do you think about like on TechCrunch and things? There's been these talk about the Series A crunch, they're calling it, or something, which is just that there were a ton of companies funded. I don't know what 12 to 18 months ago by seed investors who are now looking for their Series A from VCs, and you know there's really not that many big VCs who can write proper, you know, maybe 30 or something. I don't know, like sort of mainstream ones. And so the thought is that there's going to be a lot of companies that don't get funded and go out of business. What do you think about that?
It's absolutely happening.
Yeah.
The argument that people sort of use when talking about the Series A crunch is that it's not happening because not everyone needs a Series A, and that's true. It's true that we have some companies that sort of lifted off really, really nicely and are not building a really big business, but something that a bit more than a lifestyle, but a bit less than sort of a really sort of VC fundable company. And those guys will do well, but it's a very small percentage of the companies. Most companies will need a Series A to just scale. And what we've seen in the portfolio in the market is that just because of the sheer demand created by those thousands of startups that have been funded, at some point there's just a huge traffic jam on Sand Hill Road because there are just so many that can go through the process. And so what you need to do as a seed investor is two things. One is really sort of understand what are the sort of the couple of tipping points that you want to get the company through in terms of metrics, in terms of whether it's revenue, whether it's user base, whether it's the retention, whether it's a few things essentially that will be sort of a no-brainer for the investors.
I think you work backwards. You say, what are the Series A's people going to look at as the milestones?
And let's make sure that we
identify hit it. And I think particularly like the thing I find the biggest mistake is raising only, let's say, 12 months of cash. I'm a big advocate of 18 months.
And we're actually sort of...
I mean, I think that's the number one mistake in seed. I mean, I just met someone the other day, 12 months. So it's 3 months to raise money, which means you have 9 months. 3 months because software, you're going to lose because software just takes longer than you know. So you're really giving yourself 6 months, which means you see this all, and you do that, and you better just nail the thing on the first.
Iterations.
Yeah. Whereas 18 months effectively gives you, let's say, 12 months of real operating, which gives you 3 iterations instead of 1 or something. I don't know.
And so 18 months has always been sort of the base.
I wrote a blog post about this, and all these people were. I was surprised. Everyone was like, "What? That's like," they were like, they thought it was being silly or something. I don't know.
No.
I was told that a long time ago by an experienced entrepreneur, and I did that myself in my own companies. I think it was the best advice I was ever given. So
18 months is the basic runway that you should seek having after you seed round. And to be honest, in this environment, because those sort of thresholds or tipping points might not come in 18 months, we see two things. One is that sometimes you actually need to do a top-off round or sort of a bit of a round or a bit of a bridge, and we see those happening like all over the place. So at the end of the day, in this environment, you're going to raise 1.5. Whether you do it in 1 or 2 steps, okay, fine, that might differ. But we see, that rounds are really sort of getting larger, A, because of investor interest, but because you just need that runway to prove things to the next round of investors. Because otherwise they will sort of look at, not 1 or 2 opportunities, but 20 opportunities that are ready for a Series A, and they'll just pick the ones that seem to be right. And you just need to get there, right?
And particularly in consumer internet, if you don't have, I think for the Series A right now, if you don't have user traction, you're basically...
But user traction is not even enough anymore. That's the point, where you have to sort of show certain types of retention or engagement or...
So you think having like good user growth is not enough at a consumer internet to get a Series A now?
Well, if you have sort of crazy, insane numbers,
so you need
then maybe, but even that, doesn't mean that you will be able to build a business, and that's where sort of the...
Well, I'm not saying build a business. I mean, that's the next stage. Let's just say, just to get to, the Series A's you're seeing now, like you need more than, on the consumer side, more than just sort of user traction. You need other...
Essentially, you need to be more sophisticated than just pure user traction, understand sort of some of the basic economics and, whether you really sort of get a minimum of virality, meaning you create value and you get this effect of friends joining and they actually do something on the side or whatever. So I think people would just, hack virality, which is less and less feasible, because way back when with Facebook, which was completely open, you could do really what you wanted. Now they've really made sure to just close the viral channels, which were sort of the really aggressive ones. And so just growing virally, which was enough to raise your Series A maybe 3 years ago, is no longer enough. To us, this is where sort of discipline comes from. We're actually tending towards investing really in sort of businesses. So people who have pretty early a sense of their business model because it's baked in. Fab is a good example.
Yeah.
We've made money from Fab the day we launched the service. But why? Because it's it's transaction based.
Yeah.
When you look at Betterworks, it's the same. When you look at all those people who have either a SaaS business or payment, you're in the transaction flow. You make money. There's no question. And to us, it's just much simpler to figure out those sort of trajectories. Doesn't always work, but it's much easier, and that's therefore what we've been focusing on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and I think it's just worth emphasizing though that because I meet entrepreneurs who think that they're doing consumer internet and they talk about 12 months. And they somehow also might think that just simply having a nice product will be enough for Series A, which is clearly not the case. Maybe in if you're doing something where, a security company or something where there's significant technology risk, building the product might be sufficient to get a Series A. I think on the B2B side, that's much more likely, or maybe having just 3 pilot customers or something, right? But consumer is pretty much like you need to have a user pop. Like you have to have that to get the Series A.
I mean, there was maybe you saw the article that Mark Hendrickson wrote about Plancus, and Plancus is a company
I thought that was a really thoughtful
which I invested 2 years ago. And I love Mark, I love Plancus. Plancus is a great product. We never got it to the point of massive user traction that would make people excited to fund it and to keep it alive. And it's a very useful product and people love it. And people are sort of saying, please keep it alive, please keep it alive.
Yeah.
But we never got it to the point of being meaningful, right? And I think Mark gave a few awesome sort of recommendations or shared very openly sort of the struggles that we've had over the past couple of years. And it's not that, there was like a bunch of good people around the table who are pretty good at those kinds of products, and Mark and Jay are really strong entrepreneurs, and I really enjoy working with them, but it just didn't work.
Yeah.
And it was a good product, right? It just didn't get there in terms of numbers, in terms of retention, and we sort of decided not to even try to raise a Series A because we knew it wasn't worth it.
Yeah, I think that's another point to make. I think on the consumer side is that there's an look at the App Store, 500,000 apps. There's a massive supply of apps, and moreover, I would argue it's not a meritocracy in the sense that I think a lot of great apps aren't at the top of the charts. And
absolutely.
I wrote a blog post, this night vision goggles. It's it actually makes things, supposed to make things see the dark. It actually makes things darker, and it's like the 14th most popular, whatever. Like that kind of stuff, which is frankly kind of a scam, is like at the top of the charts, and lots of great stuff isn't. And in that world of oversupply and unmeritocratic standards of victory, it's kind of scary, I think.
Yeah, I think the only thing that shines is when you have just a fantastic product that just sells itself and you don't need to sort of engineer anything. People just enjoy it and tell you about, hey, there's this great site or there is this great app that I'm using, and they can sort of leverage the distribution platforms to get a bit more visibility, but the quality of the product will just create organic retention. And that's what we look for at the end of the day, it's organic retention.